If you had to guess what is more likely to end sexual harassment, what would you say? Target action or observer intervention? Society level macro actions or individual level micro actions? Reducing the costs of action or providing more benefits to action? Let's find out. While we recently understood the various types of actions taken by people to end sexual harassment, we are constantly aware that actions that make a difference are rarely acted upon. So it is only fitting that we now try and understand how we can reinforce the likelihood of individual action and observer intervention against sexual harassment. Research studies recommend multiple reinforcers to increase the chances of action against sexual harassment, which can be summarized into five broad areas. First is providing more opportunities to report sexual harassment. It has been found that providing people with more windows of opportunity to report sexual harassment results in more reporting or intervention. This was demonstrated in a twice conducted experiment wherein participants were put in groups where they witnessed sexual harassment of one group member by another. They were given four opportunities in the entire process to report this incident. Of all the participants, while only up to 33% reported the harassing behavior in the first reporting opportunity, up to 66% participants reported the harassing behavior in the second reporting opportunity. This pattern kept repeating for further reporting opportunities. Thus, when society at large incorporates a mechanism that provides many opportunities and ways to report, it helps vulnerable groups put an end to the harassment they face. The second type of reinforcement is right education and training. Training and education on the various facets of sexual harassment can go a long way, but right training and education is what ultimately helps end sexual harassment. Education has the potential to make people think and grow, which will prevent most people from engaging in sexual harassment in the first place. To achieve this, however, education must strive to frame sexual harassment as an ethical issue rather than a legal issue. Such education compels one to develop and practice empathy, which may be particularly important for powerful people who are less likely to take others' perspectives. Studies showed that people were less likely to report incidents of sexual harassment when they did not feel compelled morally or by role prescription to intervene. Therefore, along with moral emphasis, designating everyone as mandatory reporters of sexual harassment will enable role expectations and thereby increase reporting. When encouraging intervention, it is important to emphasize that the status quo of doing nothing by staying silent actually facilitates harassment. Training, on the other hand, facilitates learning through role modeling. Studies show that individuals who have seen role models for intervention are more likely to intervene themselves, both because they have learned how and when to take such actions and because their inhibitions toward intervention have been lowered by the role model's previous behavior. Thus, sexual harassment programs that shift from simple awareness of sexual harassment to action and response are effective as it involves preparation and practice for action. It enables people to understand the experiences and motivations of survivors, the power dynamics between harasser and target, and practice their responses. Currently, sexual harassment awareness training only helps in the identification of the obvious behaviors related to sexual coercion, such as asking for sexual favors or non consensual touching. But it has little effect on the identification of the subtle behaviors such as staring, attaching sexual meaning to work discussions, giving unwanted gifts, etc. Addressing the subtler forms in which harassment manifests is crucial in preventing the escalating spiral of it. To summarize, then, education that portrays sexual harassment as an ethical issue and provides moral role designations, along with training that focuses on role playing, intervention action, and identification of subtleties, can prove to be a great formula for reinforcing action. The next area is promoting diversity. Any organization with a culture that considers demographic differences as assets would provide an environment where everyone's contributions, especially those belonging to vulnerable groups, to the organization is accepted, respected, and valued. Thus, women who are the most common targets of sexual harassment will be more valued in proactively diverse organizations. In such companies, harmful actions will be considered a greater violation to the underlying values of the workplace. To see how diversity and sexual harassment intervention are closely related, they analyzed data from 805 companies over 32 years to explore how sexual harassment programs affect the representation of women in management. They discovered that sexual harassment grievance procedure that incited retaliation resulted in less women in management. They also found that training aimed at encouraging people to identify and intervene in sexual harassment resulted in more women in management. Because women are more likely to believe harassment complaints and less likely to respond negatively, in firms with more women managers, programs work better and intervention is higher. Yet another reinforcer is reducing costs and increasing benefits of intervention. Research on whistleblowing and bystander intervention indicates that individuals engage in cost benefit analysis when making decisions about involvement in a situation they witness. In other words, observers choose the response that is most effective in dealing with the problem while trying to minimize costs. The cost reward matrix includes costs associated with helping, such as effort, possible embarrassment, strained work relationships, retaliation, costs associated with not helping, like self blame, guilt, perceived censure from others, rewards associated with helping, like meeting of internal moral standards, appreciation from victim and others, and rewards associated with not helping, such as those stemming from continuation of other activities. The organization and the society at large must therefore focus on increasing benefits of helping and decreasing the costs of helping. For this, it may be beneficial for organizations to make special efforts to communicate that all reports will be taken seriously, explain what types of behavior are considered objectionable, what types of documentation are needed, emphasize that good faith reports of alleged wrongdoing would not constitute grounds for dismissal or harassment, establish effective internal grievance procedures along with a system of confidential reporting, publicize through employee newsletters or posters how problems were solved as a result of reports, institutionalize their commitment to ethical responsibility by including dimensions of ethical behavior on job descriptions, and ensure that the compensation system supports intervening and whistleblowing behavior. The final reinforcer is self reflection. As we discussed in the previous videos, people generally tend to forecast erroneously that they will engage in confrontation in the face of sexual harassment. And the more confrontation they predict, the more likely they are to negatively evaluate a passive survivor, leading to non intervention. However, there is a silver lining. Researchers in 2013 conducted an experiment wherein they asked participants to reflect on the possible motivations a person may have in reacting passively to sexual harassment. By doing a reflection task, they discovered that the evaluation of the survivor was much more positive as compared to when there was no reflection involved. This, along with recalling one's own past experiences of being intimidated, generated a lot more empathy towards the survivor. In the light of these results, it is understood that passive survivors are legitimate survivors, and the pressures because of which they respond passively imply that observer intervention is all the more important in these cases. To this end, it would help if discussions are held on the typical experiences and motivations of sexual harassment survivors, along with information on forecasting errors. So, to answer the questions raised in the beginning of this video, both observer intervention and individual action, societal level and individual level reinforcement, decreasing costs and increasing benefits are important in ending sexual harassment. Me Too movement is a good example of this. The use of social media to call out harassers acted as an additional opportunity for reporting and reduced the cost of reporting by ensuring some level of anonymity. However, the movement was criticized for not being diverse enough and did not really increase benefits of reporting for the survivors or observers. Additionally, many cases did not go through the justice system but rather died down at the trial by social media level. This led to many perpetrators not facing the consequences they deserved, lack of systematic changes, as well as misuse of the movement by a few. Having said that, it did lead to much self reflection within individuals, increased dialogue among the masses, and increased instances of training and education, especially by large companies and organizations, to prevent sexual harassment. Now that we have come to the end of this series, we are sure you have many more questions that you'd like to be addressed. Leave them on the comments down below and we will answer them. Happy and learning!